Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So let's get started. First and foremost, thank you everyone for being here today for this webinar presented by Behavioral Economics in Action at Raman in partnership with behaviorally informed organizations. This is our fifth webinar of this academic year. My name is Laura Goodyear, and I'm a second-year PhD student in marketing at Rotman, a BEAR research coordinator, and the moderator for today's webinar. Behavioral Economics in Action at Rotman, or BEAR, is a research center at the University of Toronto's Rotman School of Management, whose three programmatic missions are to research, educate, and engage in meaningful outreach with our academic, governmental, and industry partners. These monthly webinars are our way to hear firsthand from academics and practitioners who are making a meaningful impact in the world of behavioral insights, in particular, behaviorally informed business and evidence-based public policy. So today we are delighted to have Eric Singler, the Managing Director of the BVA Group and founder and CEO of the BVA Nudge Unit. Before I introduce Eric, I would like to go over the ground rules for this webinar. Following this introduction, our speaker will deliver a 35-minute presentation. During the presentation, please submit questions for our speaker by clicking the chat tab at the top right of your WebEx screen and typing into the text entry box. These questions will be visible to all of the participants. At the end of the talk, with time permitting, we will have a question and answer session in which I will select questions from the chat tab to ask to our speaker. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Eric. Eric is passionate about bringing behavioral science to business and social entities to drive efficiency. He has become a pioneer in applying behavioral economics learning and nudges, first in France, where he has accompanied Emmanuel Macron's team during the 2017 presidential election, and in more than 15 countries with public policies, Fortune 100 companies, NGO, and international organizations. Eric is also the founder and president of the NudgeFrance think tank. He is also the author of 3 books specializing in the application of nudges: Nudge Marketing, Green Nudge, focused on sustainability, and Nudge Management, focused on creating better work environments. So thank you so much, Eric, for being here today, and please take it away.
Hello, everybody. I have bad news for you. Not only one, but 2 bad news. First, I think you start to understand that I am French. I think I have a perfect British accent, but maybe it is an effect of overconfidence, because it seems my accent is not so perfect. So please forgive me about this. I will do my best to be clear. So the second bad news is maybe some of you have read the wonderful book, insightful book by Daniel Pink, When the Science of Perfect Timing. And here in France, it is 6 p.m., which is not exactly the right time to be at the peak performance. But the good news is, as I think a lot of you, I have a passion for behavioral economics, and I hope it will compensate the 2 difficulties and challenges. So let's start. I would like to share today some ideas about nudging for good, which is, I think, a very exciting topic. So let's start. Today, I will tell you and I will share ideas about brands and the application of nudge and behavioral science, about some people you know, about some people you don't know, but I hope everybody will be very interested by this insight. First of all, I have to make a big thank to Dilip, Liz, and the BEAR team. Thanks a lot for this opportunity to share ideas on a very great topic, applying behavioral science for a better world. And second, I would like to highly recommend, maybe the majority of you know that mid of July, we will have the BX 2020 in Toronto. So go to register, because it is a wonderful event. So now we can start, and I would like to share my background. I am first an entrepreneur, a manager, and a marketer, a quite old one. I created my first business in 1989. The name is of this company, a market research company, is in vivo, with a very simple idea: how to be more accurate to predict people, consumer behavior, by observing people and asking questions. So I have created this idea of experimental store to observe people in realistic environment and to observe what is the impact of a new packaging, the impact of a new product, a new shelf organization on people behavior. It was my first experience. Second, 20 years later, 2 years less, in 2007, I joined the BVA Group. The BVA Group is one of the largest market research and consulting company in the world, with more than 1,000 consultants. And in vivo has become PRS in vivo. But more importantly for today, I am a big fan of behavioral science and nudge. Also about Paris Saint-Germain, if some of you are familiar with soccer, but I think it is not the topic of the day. First, I discovered behavioral science thanks to Kahneman and Tversky works. It was in 2004, 2005, 3 years after Kahneman won the Nobel Prize, because at that time I was starting to write a book on my passion at that moment, packaging for consumer good product. And as I was interested to know more about insight from academic, about decision making process, I started to discover the work of Kahneman. Some years after, in 2008, I discovered, like, again, I think a lot among you, Predictably Irrational and Nudge, all published in 2008. And I started to develop some partnership with Dan. And Dan, as you know, is a genius and a wonderful guy. We started with Ladin Anik, who was at the time postdoctorate at the Center for Advanced Insight. We started to conduct some experiments. And it was really an amazing step for me to learn behavioral economics with this team. My initial mission was, from this starting point, to help France to discover the power of behavioral science and nudge, because as you know, it is born in the US, in UK, but in France it was totally unknown. So I thought it was really a problem and disappointing that France was not able to benefit from this revolution. For this, I decided to launch the BVA Nudge unit within the BVA group, first in France and after in UK, US, LATAM, and Asia. It was in 2013. Just after, I launched a think tank, NudgeFrance. The idea was to promote the application of behavioral science with some of the very few academics in France, Alberto Alemano, Olivier Houillet, who were experts in behavioral science, also with some people who had with me discovered the power of nudge and behavioral science for public policy. It was the case of Françoise Ventrop and some of my friends, Etienne Bressou, who is now the head of BVA Nudge unit in France, and Richard Bordenave, who is the head of the BVA Nudge unit in Asia, based in Singapore. We have worked quite a lot to promote the nudge approach in our countries, organizing each year a nudge challenge in partnership with some big organizations. This year it was WWF, before it was Greenpeace or the Ministry of Sport in France. We have also organized, it was in 2016, a big conference with our key speaker, Cass, to promote once again, this idea of applying behavioral science to be more efficient, first in public policy, but also in organization. So you start to understand that my passion was really about promoting the nudge. So I started to write some books, as it was mentioned during the introduction, and also to, I think a lot among you know the Behavioral Economics Guide, which you can download for free in the internet. So I decided to translate this guide into French and to add some new contribution from French academic researcher and practitioner. So the idea was still the same, to promote the use, the application of nudge and behavioral science in my country. And hopefully it was possible to conduct, it was in 2013, a first experiment. It was with the French tax administration and an office which belonged to the Prime Minister office, le SGMAP. What was the topic? How to encourage households to declare their revenue online rather than to use a paper form. Because the challenge was in France, 70% of French households were used to use the paper form, and only 30% using the online form, and the paper form was much more expensive, 40 times higher than the online form. So the tax administration wanted to encourage French households to use the paper form. What we did is some very simple application of very well-known driver of influence. First, trying to make the online the default option. Here you see what was the notice you receive at home at the moment you have to declare your income. And you see at the middle 100% en ligne, which means there is an option in the paper form. Instead of the paper form, there is an option to use the online, the impot.gouv website. But it was not really salient. So our idea was to change this notice and to make the online the default option. So you see Je déclare en ligne, which is a title, and everything is about encouraging people and communicating advantages that we have when we declare, when we use the online, the website. We also use another very well-known mechanism, framing. And framing what? The initial email that you receive again at home at that moment. And we have tried to use a lot of driver of influence, salience as the subject of this email, social norm, incentive, an easy call to action, availability with the online option available on the smartphone and some reward and so on. So you see, it's very simple. It's just rewarding the notice, rewarding the email. And at the end of the day, we made a very big test with 5 groups of 500,000 households. And again, the control group, we won 1.1 million online users. We received a nice letter from the Minister of Finance. And it was a starting point in the French administration. What happened just after? We won some big award in the market research industry, what we call the ESMAR International Award, the best case history, and after the best paper for this research. The title of this research was French government nudge me tender. The French government was very happy with this experiment. It's not so frequent that administration in France is so efficient to change behavior. So they have started to make some communication about the nudge. Here you see the website at that time promoting the new tool at the service of public action, the nudge. Just after, it was an opportunity for me to meet President François Hollande. Here is a nice picture. To introduce the nudge approach in the context of our candidacy, the candidacy of Paris 2024 for the Olympics. The idea was to apply the nudge approach and behavioral science to encourage eco-friendly behaviors and friendliness during the Olympics. And François Hollande and the guy in charge of this candidacy, his name is Tony Estanguet, were convinced to use the nudge approach. It was, I think, a quite big step. Just after, I decided to write in a big newspaper in France an article in Libération pour une nudge unit à la française, saying that we need to have a nudge unit in France, as there is one in the US at that time and one in UK and others in other countries. Except my mother and maybe my father, someone read this article. He was absolutely not well known at that time. His name is Ismaël Emélien, but he was a special advisor of a new Minister of Finance, his name, Emmanuel Macron. So this guy asked me to write a note to describe how we could create and how it would work in France. How could we have a nudge unit very concretely? You maybe recognize again this guy, which after the victory of Emmanuel Macron at the presidential election, became his special advisor and main advisor. So it was an advantage. First, we started to work with Emmanuel Macron and his team during the presidential election in France. And maybe more importantly, it motivates Emmanuel Macron and his team to create a French nudge unit in 2018. The name is Méthode innovante et sciences comportementales. You see here Stéphane and Marianne, who are part of this team, which is part of the Prime Minister office, with Thomas Cazenave as the leader at that time of this team. Now, we are quite happy to have France recognized as one country where behavioral science is used, applied, even if, to be very transparent, is not at all at the level of what it is in a lot of countries like Singapore or UK, for example. But we are not now there. My second mission, so I was quite happy with my first mission, even if we have a lot of progress to do, but I know the team, the nudge unit, the French behavioral science unit, is on the process of running around 10 experiments on key topics, and we should have some results in the 6 coming months. My second mission, and I would like to dedicate some time on this, is helping organizations to discover the power of nudging for good. It is a big element of our mission at the BVA Nudge Unit. If you go to our website, you will see we are committed to nudging for good. And I think for sure ethics is a key question when you want to apply behavioral science to influence people, to encourage people to adopt a new desired behavior. So what we believe, and it's really very important, is creating trust and confidence with clients for any organization is critical for the long-term success of this organization. If we were alone to think this, I think it would be maybe not so interesting. But here is a quote from the ex-CEO of Unilever. His name is Paul Poman, and we share this thought. What we firmly believe is that if we focus our company on improving the lives of the world's citizens and come up with genuine sustainable solutions, we are more in sync with consumer and society, and ultimately this will result in good shareholder returns. We are very convinced that nudging for good for organization and for private business, meaning not only trying to develop relevant services and relevant products, but also thinking about the future of the planet, or how could I encourage my client to save, to make better decisions for their health, and so on, is really critical. And we are very convinced that the companies which will be able to create this trust and confidence with their clients will be the one who will win in the coming years. And hopefully we have been able to convince quite a lot of organizations. Here is an extract of our clients in the 6 last months in more than 15 countries. So you see it is in a very different sectors. There is a common element for each of these clients and each of these organizations. First, it is about nudging for good, meaning it could have, and in most of the cases, there is an advantage for the organization. But each time, 100% of the case, there is a clear advantage for the consumer, the client, the user, whatever we call it. There is a win-win element in what we try to do with this company. Now I would like to share an initiative that I love, I have to say, the Nudging for Good AIM initiative. We were lucky to partner with AIM. I will tell you more about AIM in a minute. In this vision to help brand encourage their consumer to adopt and to make healthier decisions and to adopt more sustainable lifestyle. What is AIM? AIM is the biggest association in Europe representing the manufacturer of branded consumer goods. So it is more than 2,500 businesses, from small business to multinational, meaning they are all the P&G, Mars, L'Oréal, Nestlé, Danone, Kellogg's of the world, which are represented in this big association. What is the Nudging for Good initiative? It is really about how, as an organization, we could encourage our members, so the biggest brand in the FMCG world, to use and to apply the nudge approach and behavioral science to help consumers to make better decisions and to adopt new behavior which are good for themselves, for their community, or for the planet. It is what we call the Nudging for Good initiative. Concretely, the first step, it was in 2015, was to design a Nudging for Good toolkit that you could find on the website to help the AIM members to apply the nudge approach. So we help to understand what is nudge, we give case studies, we help them to know what is the process to create a nudge, and I think there is a consensus in our nudge community about how to create nudge that are powerful, nudge is above all a question of applying science, starting by understanding how people behave and what influences their behavior. And we know that the context is absolutely critical. Why people who would like to adopt some positive behavior, who have good intents, are not able to adopt the relevant behavior. So we have to start first by understanding, after co-creating intervention, and after testing before deploying. So we try to explain this in the BVA AIM Nudging for Good Toolkit. Second was the launch in 2017 of the AIM Nudging for Good Awards. And here the idea was to accelerate the use of the nudge approach with an award which is open to all the AIM members to contribute and to candidate and to apply to this challenge. You need first to apply the nudge approach with an objective which is clear, helping people to adopt healthier and more sustainable lifestyle. For this Nudging for Good Awards, we were very happy to have in our jury great members, starting with our president, Cass Sunstein, as you know, the co-author of Nudge, and some great people, including representatives of the biggest consumer association in Europe, Monique Goyens, people from WWF, from the World Economic Forum, with Faisal from the OECD, and so on. And a wonderful team at AIM to develop this initiative. Michel, who is the head, the managing director of AIM, Catherine in charge of, who was the first in 2017 to really believe in this initiative of the Nudging for Good Awards, and Eva was very committed to make this a success. And the good news is it has been a success. Here are the logo of the 10 finalists, which are all among the largest global consumer good companies: Unilever, Danone, P&G, PepsiCo, Nestlé, Pernod Ricard, Savencia, ACT, I will come back later on this, Mars and Heineken. So this initiative was really successful, and I think it's great for the world. The more these companies are making effort to understand behavioral science and to know how they could use behavioral science to be efficient, to encourage their client to adopt new positive behavior, it's a good news for the world. It is a beginning. We have to be totally clear on this, but it is really a great beginning because these companies have a lot of resources. They understand that creating trust and confidence with their consumer is maybe the most important action they can do, not only to create a better world, but also to reach their financial objectives. And we have to be clear on this. I would like to share now concretely some of the examples of the winners of the challenge this year. First one, we call this the Diamond Award, is the Smart Bin designed by Procter & Gamble. What is the Smart Bin? It is a unique diaper recycling technology to collect used diapers. Today there is a problem. The problem is parents have no choice but to throw their baby's diaper waste into the normal household bin. There is no solution to collect disposable diaper for recycling. And the bad thing, it is life, parents change their baby 4 to 5 times a day. So we create a lot of waste because of this. So P&G has invested quite a lot in R&D to tackle this technological challenge and has developed this smart bin. Why it is a nudge? We will see this just after. But first, the experiment. P&G has decided to put 12 smart bins in 3 neighborhoods in Amsterdam as a first pre-test, I would say, placed in high-frequency areas, for example, in front of a drugstore or daycare center. The other idea is to make it easy for people to use the smart bins. Consumers could participate by downloading first an app which allows you to locate a bin closest to the consumer and generate a code so you could use the smart bin. Why it is a nudge? It is a nudge if we think about how to encourage consumers to use the smart bin. So P&G has used a lot of the drivers we know from experiments in behavioral science, activating ego and pride. For example, consumers see their contribution to the environment via a tangible impact page. Your recycled diapers are equivalent to X chair, X paper, to make it very concrete, to create quick win, which help people to understand that they have an impact, also via milestone and thank you cards. You came first time, it is an habit, and so on. We have used also reward, meaning a very classical discount for next pamper diaper purchase after having dropped diaper for 4 times. We have used social norms, the neighborhood impact in the app, so you can feel part of the movement with sentence like your neighbor recycled in total X diapers, equivalent of X chair and X paper. P&G has also used Salience. Salience to integrate, by the way of integrating in the P&G communication platform in-store and digital, message related to this smart bin use. So a lot of different ways to encourage and to facilitate the use of the smart bin. The good thing is in the pre-test survey, and the idea of P&G is to deploy the smart bin progressively in countries in Europe and outside of Europe. 400 families in the 3 neighborhoods in Amsterdam register and try the program. In total, over 100,000 diapers have been collected. Most respondents, in fact 78%, recycled diapers either once or twice per week, and 92% rate the program positive to very positive. So here is, I think, a great way to encourage consumers to recycle and not to waste diapers. Second example, totally different, came from Nestlé, with what Nestlé calls a Nutri-Plateau. And here the objective is to contribute to the prevention of childhood obesity. There is, like in a lot of countries, in Spain, a lot of overweight and obesity. So the idea, inspired by some experience in the US, was to create a plate which shows the appropriate proportion of the food groups. The results, again, on the first pre-test are very positive. 80% of a total of more than 3,000 families have used Nutri-Plateau, and 77% have changed their nutritional habits. Now, in Spain, we have more than 2,000 healthcare professionals using Nutri-Plateau. Another case is made and by Heineken. And here the question is also a very important one: how to reduce drink driving behaviors. And the idea was to redesign a bar environment with a collection of different nudges. Signage encouraging drivers to stay alcohol-free, making alcohol-free drinks prominent with communication and increasing availability of alcohol-free offers and drivers' menu, rewarding positive behavior with driver incentive and bar staff support. Also prompting people to make the right decision with reminder, including throughout the car park and bar through signage and point of sales material. Again, the pilot program has been evaluating very positively. First in UK, it reduced drink driving by up to 50% in Heineken bar. And Heineken has started to conduct experiments in Brazil, New Zealand, with some good, even less results. So again, a great initiative on a big social challenge. Another one is with the Salience group. Here is how we could guide the consumer toward the right portion size of a cheese. The initial challenge is quite simple to understand. Restrictive and directive dietary advice often fail to encourage the right behavior. So how you could encourage people to reduce the portion of cheese they eat to avoid problem of obesity. And what was the idea of Salience, as you see in the packaging, is to create visual marks which per default help consumer to understand what is the recommended portion size. What was the result of this is better control of the quantity, and it was very, I would say, brave for the company to agree and to target to have a reduction, a decrease of the quantity consumed per service, minus 13%, and during 5 days, during a week, minus 28%. And the idea is, if I help the consumer to be in control of his consumption, he will be happy to continue to consume the product in a more responsible way. Here is a case. I don't know if it will be possible to share this video. It is a wonderful case about gender equality in Hungary. And here the question is how we could create conversation about gender equality. So it was the first step of the behavior. There is a second step which will be this year to help people at home to share more equally the task we have to do. But I would like to try to share this movie. So how could I do this? I don't know exactly.
Eric, so try stop sharing your screen and then
stop sharing.
And then click the third icon saying share content. Oh yeah, there we go.
So, are we back? Just
We still see the video.
okay. So, let me try to.
Yep, we see it.
Okay. So I think it's really a wonderful movie. They won what we call, they were, and ACT won the coup de cœur du jury. To be frank, we had a strong discussion about this. Is it nudge or is it simply communication? And at the end of the debate, we all agree that if we consider the new desired behavior is creating conversation about gender equality, in this case, we could consider it is nudge because we change a behavior from no conversation to a new conversation. And in this movie, Zewa has used a lot of driver of influence, emotion for sure, but also messengers using some influencers. So I do believe that if, and it is, I know, what Zewa wants to do, if they are able to continue on this and to offer to clients some promotional object, for example, to help children at home to follow the task and who is in charge of what, it could really help to change behavior, including at home. So I think it was really a case. I would like to finish with a case where we have worked and partnered with United Nations on a really wonderful, amazing objective. I don't know if you know the E4C movement. The E4C movement is a UN movement for gender equality with a huge, a very challenging objective, having 1 million men supporting gender equality. At the right of the screen, you have Elizabeth Nyamayaro, who is the global head of E4C. On the left, you have Funzile Mlambo, who is the executive director of UN. They have a vision which is very clear. If we want to accelerate the change regarding gender equality, we need to have the support of men. And it is the objective of the E4C movement. But there is a website, for E4C. Here is the homepage at that moment, and you have to register from this website to become a member of E4C and to support the movement. I have to say that the homepage was not so good. Our job was to nudge this website to create much more commitment and registration to the E4C. What we did is first we observe all the what we call the friction and micro barriers when people are visiting this website. For example, 3 of these barriers. First was the name, he for she. For some people, it was not so clear. Is it for LGBT or gender equality? And each time there is a friction, people stop to navigate, even if the answer of this is at one click distance, I would say. The call to action was, are you he for she? Count me in. But people, it was again not so clear. To commit to what? Count me in what? To give money? To take action? Each time there is a friction, there is an opportunity for people to stop. Even if they have the intent to support the movement, they could change their mind. There was also nothing about the duration of the registration process. So here are, among others, some of the friction that are necessary in each nudge approach to identify before creating some nudges. So at the right of the screen, you see our rework for the home page, your personal invitation. So to make it very clear, if you read the sentence, what is the purpose of he for she, and also some very small technical modification, changing from count me in to I commit with it's free to commit and it only takes 10 seconds. We have also added not only removing the barriers, but also activating new drivers. For example, engagement, for example, transmitter, emotion, also social norms, until the very end of the process, meaning the registration process. You see, I am one of millions, and you only have to register to complete your first name, last name, email address, and country. What was the result of this? Before our intervention, the conversion rate between visitors and commitment was 2%. After the day after, 24%, which is 50,000 additional registration each day, 1 million every 20 days. So I think, again, we have a lot now of experiments, of evidence regarding the impact we could have with small change when it is smart change based on an in-depth understanding of people behavior. I like to end this presentation with this quote from one of my heroes. His name is Iris Bonnet. Her name is Iris Bonnet from the Harvard Kennedy School. Behavioral design is the most useful and underutilized tool we have. It's not only true for gender inequality, I think it's true for a lot of social challenges. So in conclusion, what I would like to share with you is, as practitioner and researcher and people interested in nudge, we have to dream big. And more precisely, I do believe that we have to start applying behavioral science not to correct or to improve things which are not so great, but to apply behavioral science from early stage to create powerful application, powerful website, powerful communication, products, services to help people to make better decisions. Second, I do believe, it is a high ambition, but I do believe that we could apply behavioral science to contribute to tackle the main challenges we face. What are the main challenges? Climate change, inequality, and big thank you to Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee for their work. Poverty, and also fake news, and what happens for democracy because of fake news. So thank you, thanks Bear, thanks all. A little nudge at the end, we like you too, and I am happy to answer to any question if we have time.
All right, thank you so much, Eric. So I think we're just out of time for today's webinar, but we've covered so many interesting topics and so many interesting nudges. So again, we'd like to thank Eric for leading our webinar today. A full recording of this webinar will be available at our website by clicking the side tab labeled events and then clicking the sub tab labeled BEAR webinar series. So our next webinar will be February 12th, and we will hear from Dr. Mariam Chamat, who is the executive advisor at the French Behavioral Insights Unit within the Interministerial Directorate for Public Information or Transformation, excuse me. So thank you again all for attending, and you can exit this webinar by closing your WebEx screen.
Thanks so much, Eric.
Thanks. Sorry it was long.